Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are, in which part of the world. A very warm welcome to all of you for this AMA session. It's always a huge pleasure to talk to our own community. My name is Vinod Tiwari, and I'm the head of business development and sales for Power Ledger. And I'm joined today by my colleague Anya Nova. Anya is our product owner for TraceX product, as well as our crypto economist. Anya?
It's lovely to be here. I'm very excited to have a chance to talk to you about what we've been building recently.
Yeah, and just before we get started, let me give an overview of the format today. It's a bit different because it's on Zoom. We've sort of in the past done live on camera, but still AMA. So you ask the question and we will respond. So we are in your hands. During the session, you will be on mute. So, and you cannot unmute yourself, but you can ask your questions by typing them in Q&A box. So underneath there is a chat box as well as Q&A. We would prefer you put all your questions in Q&A box and not in the chat, please. And the format, so going forward, we'll be doing a little bit of an introduction of the theme. It's not a webinar type of presentation, so we're not really doing a formal presentation. But we are, as you see on the screen, scaling renewables on the grid. That's our theme for today. So we'll just introduce the topic and then open for questions and answers. So let's get started. The world of energy, as we knew, is in rapid transformation. Even if you're not from energy markets, you know that the grid, as it used to look like a linear grid where there were large power stations supplying energy to consumers through transmission distribution network, one-way flow of energy, is not the case anymore. Distributed energy resources are all around us. Many of you have rooftop solar in your own houses, maybe batteries, and maybe even electric vehicles. And all of these are changing the landscape of energy system. And then we have the large-scale solar, wind, and other renewables in the mix as well. So there is clearly a spotlight on renewable energy on the grid. And whilst it's been great in technologies like solar and wind, bringing the prices down, as well as making the grid green, it's not without its own challenges as well. So ask any grid operator, the integration of renewable is a huge challenge. And some of these come from the fact that the energy is now flowing in reverse direction as well, from people's rooftop back to the grid, as well as when you get the daytime load sort of affected by renewables like solar, which are supplying and they are variable renewable, of course, they intermittent. So it poses problems of scheduling of synchronous generation, which is what previously supplied electricity to us largely. So changing of or interruption in that system also causes energy system security risk, as well as problems with reverse flow of energy to grid infrastructure itself. So there are challenges. But at the same time, if you look at the business world and also people's own commitment towards green energy, we all want green energy. We're here in Australia in the last month alone, Bunnings, Woolworths, they've all announced that they want to be 100% renewable in the next few years. And this is a trend around the world. Look at all the major businesses globally. There are programs like RE100, which have had a very high uptake of renewable as well. So on the other hand, there is a very high demand and uptake of renewable. There is a challenge that the grid operators are facing, and clearly it needs solutions. Where we sit, and we'll talk more about it, is very proud to actually offer a whole suite of solutions that solve this problem of scalability of renewable on the grid. So I'll move on to the next slide, which deals with the environmental commodity feature, which is about renewable energy certificates. So over to you, Anya. You are the product owner. You can describe this better than anyone else. Sorry, you're on mute, Anya. Oh, so Anya needs to be unmuted.
Thanks, Vinod. Yeah, I'd love to talk about TraceX. So just at a high level, for those that might not have come across renewable energy certificates before, like what is it? Renewable energy certificate is basically measured in megawatt hours. So every time a megawatt hour is produced from a clean energy source, like a solar farm or a wind turbine, there is the actual energy that's being produced, and then there is the attribution, the greenness of that energy. And sometimes those two things are sold together, and sometimes they are sold separately. So it's really being used as a mechanism to provide extra revenue to renewable energy generators so that they could pay off the investment into those assets faster and can start reinvesting the revenue into building more and more assets. So it's just one of the mechanisms that different countries put in place to promote growth in renewables. So it has been around for a while, and the market is really huge. It's about $3 billion in the United States. There is another really big market in Europe, and there are smaller markets, but growing rapidly in Asia and Australia. And it's done its job, as in it provided the right outcomes, but it's a bit of a older model that's becoming not as fit for purpose due to some of the things that Vinod talked about, where there is more renewables produced at certain times of the day. So some of the big issues with RECs at the moment is that they are, first of all, often traded bilaterally, as in a buyer has to negotiate a contract with a seller. There are expensive legal costs. I can't just sell to anyone. I need to do due diligence on the party that I'm selling to make sure they're actually capable of paying. There is lack of price transparency as a result. So if there is a broker in the middle, I have to trust the broker to ensure that they communicate in the right price to me. And it's just generally not the best way to structure a market. So the markets that we typically think of as being really liquid and really efficient are types of market that we call exchange traded. So that is where you buy shares, for example. So there is buyers and sellers, lots of them trading in real time. They could be anonymous or don't have to be. They put their prices, whether they can execute a market order and just take the price that's available. They can put different conditions on that order, as in I don't want to buy something unless it's that particular price. So we really see the need to transition the whole REC trading, renewable energy certificate trading, from that over-the-counter bilateral agreements type of arrangement to an exchange-traded arrangement. So that's the one problem, because we think due to that, money is being left on the table and not all of the revenue goes to the parties that could actually reinvest it in renewables. And the second problem has to do with how RECs have been accounted for historically. So traditionally, they've been accounted for on an annualized basis. And there was a really interesting recent study from Stanford that showed that accounting for RECs that way could be overstating the greenhouse gas emissions by 50%. And what that's due to is that, let's say I bought 1 million RECs and I had 1 million megawatt hours of energy that I have consumed, but the energy that I have consumed actually happened not at the time when the RECs were produced. So, but I'm offsetting and calculating as if I have offset 100% of my consumption with those green RECs. So some of the kind of leaders in that space are larger tech companies like Google, who are starting to report on their renewableness, not just in aggregate, but facility by facility and hour by hour. So it's really kind of like cutting edge of renewable energy certificate and the different standards and policies around them. But people are starting to think about, okay, we actually need to stamp each REC individually with a timestamp to allow that sort of more granular reporting. And Vinod might touch later on the benefits of that. So really, the two main issues that we're choosing to address with TraceX is that tradability and granularity of RECs. And we've had quite a bit of traction already. We've signed up agreements with our partners in the United States for compliance and voluntary market. So we have partnered with Clearway Energy that have about 4 gigawatts of renewable assets and are continuously building more. And we are partnering with Emirates, which is the one of the largest tracking systems in the United States. So Emirates is quite an innovative organization in that they're allowing spot market operators such as TraceX to connect to their system and allow trading of their X on the spot market system. So I'll just pause for now because I've talked for quite a bit, but then maybe at the end I'll talk a bit more about the features of TraceX.
Thanks, Anya. And yeah, so basically what we're doing is bridging the gap between old and new energy system. And how we're doing it, it is through a whole range of solutions that we offer, features and applications that we offer. So many of you already know majority of our solutions, features that we rolled out in the past, and we are rolling out new features as well. There are some here on this screen that you probably do not know of, so I'll take this opportunity just to very briefly introduce these features as well, that we are either in the process of launching or have just recently launched as well. And you all know what Power Ledger does. Broadly, we use blockchain as the core technology to spin off marketplaces. And these marketplaces are in energy trading, in flexibilities trading, and this is something new that you probably haven't heard too much from us about, and also environmental commodities trading, which Anya just touched upon. So pretty much from tracking the energy, where it's generated and who is using it, so providing that traceability and vision of source of energy, through to if there is excess energy available, enabling the asset owner to trade that. It could be peer-to-peer energy trading, or it could be from large solar farm to consumers, or business to other consumers, or business to business. So all these features enable energy trading applications. And it could also be a form of peer-to-peer energy trading, where we create loyalty peer-to-peer, as we call it, or loyalty between for the brand, where potentially a brand like, say, for example, a beer company or any other retail brand can procure energy from customers' rooftop solar, and in return offer loyalty credits. So multiple objectives could be met there. People can get potentially higher return on their investment through better energy price instead of feed-in tariff, for example, selling it to this brand. And the brand could develop that brand loyalty and also achieve its own sustainability targets as well. So very briefly sort of mention XGrid is a product which enables peer-to-peer energy trading across the grid. UGrid or microgrid product feature enables peer-to-peer energy trading behind the meter in microgrid environment. This could be in a shopping center, apartment complex, retirement village, for example. And we have many of these already commercialized and deployed around the world, and definitely here in Australia as well. And you expand the energy trading concept to include batteries, which is, and these batteries could be behind the meter or commercial for residential uses, for example, or commercial, industrial, in industrial park, shopping centers. And we can aggregate the capacity of these batteries and enable their participation for unlocking additional revenue streams, for example. They might have invested in these batteries for their own self-consumption or cheaper energy, for example. Our platform enables unlocking additional revenue stream by enabling participation in wholesale electricity market. When the market prices are high, they can take benefit by energy arbitrage, and also participate in grid balancing services for stability of grid through frequency control, for example. So participation in frequency control ancillary service market as well. And then the new part, which is the issue that I mentioned about grids facing congestion or constraints due to introduction of renewable. They need flexibility services, and these flexibilities can come from the assets that people own, batteries, rooftop solar, electric vehicles, and even dispatchable home appliances as well, which might be IoT connected and can respond to market signals. So this flexibilities marketplace is this interconnected community of energy aggregators, retailers, people who own these assets that I just mentioned that can respond to solutions that the grid operator needs. And by grid operator here, I mean distribution network service providers, which have now started a new pathway to become, in Australia, they call distribution systems operators, because they are seeking their own flexibilities to deal with these issues that the grid faces due to the constraints. And then we also spin off marketplaces for power purchase agreements. So PPA exchange, for example, is a marketplace for corporate PPAs. That is a very big trend where businesses are now underwriting new renewable energy projects or participating in existing projects by underwriting buying of energy for a significant period, renewable energy, to deal with their sustainability targets, for example. So that kind of gives a mix of solutions that PowerLedger is offering in the space of energy trading, as well as in flexibilities trading. Environmental commodities trading, Anya just touched upon TraceX and Trace, which is basically enabling or providing an efficient marketplace for buying and selling of renewable energy certificates. Anything else you wanted to add on that, Anya?
I've had a sneak peek at some of the questions that are coming in, and I think we can just probably jump straight into those because there are some really good ones on TraceX. Great.
So maybe I think that with that introduction to our theme, we can pause, I suppose, from this introduction perspective, but jump straight into the questions, and you and I can take on the answers or respond to these questions with our answers.
Yeah, let's do that. So there is a good one that came in from an anonymous attendee asking, there are many groups that are building exchanges and digital versions of REX. Have you explored any blockchain interoperability solutions to move digital REX across multiple platforms? It's a fantastic question. And it's particularly relevant for the US market, where there are multiple registries operating based on the different geographies. These registries have been established some time ago. Some of them have built their software in the 2000s. So as you imagine, there was not a set standard for exactly how do you record a REC and what information do you keep with that REC. So obviously everyone keeps information such as the year that the energy was produced, the type of the fuel, the asset, and who owns the REC at that time, but everyone does it in slightly different ways. So what's emerging now is that interoperability is actually a critical issue preventing more fluid transference of RECs across the United States. And I think blockchain has an essential role to play. Well, first of all, it's a really perfect technology for RECs because blockchain was created to enable transaction of digital things of value, such as Bitcoin. And this is exactly what REC is. It doesn't exist in a physical world. It just exists as a concept with a serial number and the time that it was produced. But they could be really valuable. They could be retailing anywhere, from the lowest kind of price of $1 anywhere to $400. So you really want to make sure that they're not being double sold, that the right amount is in circulation, that once it has been retired, it cannot be put back on the market. So that's one way in which blockchain is really a great solution for renewable energy certificates. And then the second one being interoperability. If I'm buying a REC from a particular registry, let's say in the Midwest, and I'm trying to transfer it to another registry in Texas, or if I'm trying to retire it against a voluntary obligation, I actually have to have an account in multiple registries. So I could be in a situation where I'm keeping track of like 50 different login details to different registries and kind of trying to figure out how many RECs do I actually own. That's of course a problem for a large enterprise kind of buyer or trader of RECs. But if we conceptually think about it from a point of view of how blockchain works, where everyone just has a wallet on the blockchain that is visible to everyone, and as long as the RECs are in that wallet, these are my RECs. But if I'm transferring them to another wallet, that's reflected immediately. Everyone recognizes that it's a fully transparent transaction that is reflected in all of the systems simultaneously, rather than having to transact between different systems or different software programs, and then all that entails, such as human error or just mistakes that can crop up. So yes, absolutely, we're thinking about interoperability. There is a number of states, such as Nevada, that's recently put out a request for comments on interoperability. So it is something that's getting a lot of traction and attention in the States, and we think our solution would be very interesting for them.
Great, thanks, Anya. So I noticed next question from Greg from Darwin, asking about what are the advantages and if there are any disadvantages for each of the two distributed generation models, talking about VPP and household energy trading system. So, I mean, clearly huge advantages, and this is where the world of energy is moving to. And we talked about the fact that solar is so cheap and the battery prices coming down, that it is becoming a natural choice for people to have rooftop solar and in many instances batteries as well. So this is the technology is driving the uptake. They are here and they are integrating into larger energy system. And there we talked about some of the issues it's posing to the grid operators as well. And some key critical aspects is that visibility and predictability, as well as controllability of these assets as well. So as grid operators, the supply and balance need to be maintained at any given instant exactly the same. Otherwise, the frequency will go out of control. So you don't want under frequency load shedding, for example, brownouts, or even over frequency issues. So grid operators do need to have visibility of where these assets are, and if they are going to provide any service back to the grid, that they actually, those services are offered. So these are some of the challenges. I wouldn't call them as disadvantages in any way. They are actually advantages, providing absolutely services back to the grid for stability, for dealing with the constraints of the networks, including voltage imbalances and reactive power issues. So grid needs these services. Whilst there are challenges, there are solutions that will come from distributed energy resources. So virtual power plants, then we describe mode, which is marketplace for distributed energy. Together are a solution for scaling up of renewable, as well as stability of grid on the and the new energy system.
Thanks, Vinod. I'll take the next one. So there is a good question here from another anonymous attendee. I think people may be a little bit shy to put their names down. So the question is, who are the buyers of RECs? It's a great question. So the buyers come in really two camps. One camp is the ones that have to buy, because by regulation, they need to support renewables, and that could be really large utilities in the States, for example, or in other countries. So they have to source 20 or 30 or whatever that might be % of energy from renewable sources. So often they do that by purchasing the RECs and then retiring the RECs against their obligation. So that's one big camp. We call them the compliance market. And then we have a second camp, which we call voluntary market. And that's companies and multinationals that signed up voluntarily to renewable energy targets. So they could have done that through an organization, for example, like RE100, or they are part of the Renewable Energy Buyers Association, or whatever that might be. But they make some sort of statement, usually a very ambitious statement, such as by such a year, we're going to be 100% renewable. And then they track their own progress towards that goal. So they could be achieving that goal through 3 different ways. They could be building in-house generation. Maybe it's solar on top of their office or warehouse or whatever that might be. They could be entering into direct PPA arrangements with renewable energy generators. And if there is a gap, or most of it, depending on where they're located and what their load profile is, they could be buying RECs on the market. So these are voluntary RECs. So we find that with a kind of lots of interest in the society about green energy and sustainability, that more and more companies are starting to make those kind of big vision statements about wanting to be renewable, and that's really a great thing that's happening. And they are the ones that are driving the demand for the voluntary RECs and for the markets that we are developing.
Yeah, thanks, Anya. And there's a connected question as well from, again, an anonymous attendee asking about what's stopping institutions from adopting green energy. So you actually already partly answered that this is a trend now. There's nothing stopping green energy is becoming more and more being adopted very rapidly. And I mentioned a couple of names from Australia. Bunnings and Woolworths just in the last month announced 100% renewable energy targets. From Microsoft to Google to there are many companies which have already announced high uptake of renewable or 100% renewable. They are part of RE100 program. Many of them are part of RE100 as well, and actually going further granular, more granular than just simply procuring 100% green, but in kind of matching their load profile with renewable energy at the time as they're using the hourly matching of their consumption with renewable energy as well. So this is happening, and there are different ways institutions are looking at, I suppose, going 100% renewable. Some of these would be partly from their rooftop solar if they have large roof space, for example. The other options would be underwriting power purchase agreement from these renewable energy projects. And then also unique innovative solutions like what Power Ledger is offering, loyalty peer-to-peer is also one of the ways to partly fulfill their sustainability objectives, where they can procure energy from their customers, excess energy from the rooftop solar of their customers, and create that additional brand loyalty as well.
I'm looking for a next good question. There is one here just about what it means to be a product owner in the context of Power Ledger. It's an interesting question, because being a product owner just means that you end up being a focal point for many different streams of work. So with TraceX being the REC marketplace, it's really all about understanding what are the dynamics internationally, where are the markets that we want to pursue. It's developing and building BD opportunities together with the business development team. And it's also making sure that we understand what the customers need right now and in what order, so that we build the features that could be immediately utilized by reg buyers and reg sellers. It's as well as looking at kind of the legal aspect of operating in different geographies. So that's a quick summary on that.
Yeah, thanks, Anya. And I see a question from Buck Endman from United States. Good evening. Must be really late to your time there, Buck. Well, depending on where you are. The question is about PPA exchange. How does PPA exchange work? And is this envisioned as where corporates could swap PPAs amongst each other? So great question, Buck. And we haven't launched it yet. This is a product that or a feature that we are about to launch. Broadly, it is the marketplace for corporate PPAs. So traditionally, PPAs were underwritten by large utilities as part of their compliance requirements for renewable energy targets, and also voluntarily supplying renewable as well. That obviously the trend that we've been talking about and seeing is now shifting to corporates underwriting PPAs as well, and the process is very cumbersome, and many in the law fraternity will know, and those who are sort of participating in commercial PPAs, that it can take months and months, sometimes a couple of years, to actually start the process of procurement, writing the contract, creating the legal templates. So not only time intensive, but it is a resource and financial intensive process as well. So what Power Ledger is creating as a PPA exchange, and I'll just keep it broad, basically high level at this stage, we haven't launched it, is an efficient marketplace where buyers and sellers, through various exchange-based mechanism, including reverse auction type of mechanism, can procure energy for their load profile. I mean, you can match your load profile through these PPAs as well, and make it easier for mid-sized businesses as well. So they don't have to be very large corporates with big fleet of legal and commercial manager type of services available to them. So even SMEs could participate in these, local governments, etc., who are very keen to procure large amount of renewable energy. So through the PPA exchange, we will cut short the process of energy procurement, renewable energy procurement, make it a lot more efficient, and it'll have standard sort of legally vetted templates which can be standardized and in the procurement process fast-tracked. We also plan to then create a secondary market as well in that. And I won't go into too much detail, but just to keep a teaser out there that if you don't need all the energy that you've procured, for example, you can trade it in the secondary market as well that the PPA exchange will enable.
Thanks, Vinod. There is a great question here about Ethereum. So is Ethereum going to stay the right backbone for distributed ledger operation in REX trading, or are modern centralized systems going to become cheaper or more efficient and suitable? So for those that might not know what Ethereum is, it is one of the largest kind of smart contract public blockchains out there. So Ethereum previously, we didn't really consider using that because, apologies, I had a little glitch here with my Zoom, something popped up. But basically Ethereum has been a proof of work type of blockchain for a long time. And proof of work relies on solving lots of computational kind of puzzles, which is very energy intensive. And it wasn't really aligned with what we're trying to achieve at Powerledger. Especially with REC trading. So now that they are transitioning to the proof of stake, which has just happened last week, but it's still a long process, it's going to be a multi-phase approach to that transition. It is becoming a more interesting blockchain from that point of view, which is not going to require energy resources. It's also has a promise of becoming really highly scalable, which of course is of interest to us because we're envisaging having to facilitate just millions or thousands of transactions every few minutes. So it is something that we are really closely watching, haven't made any decisions on that front. Obviously, it has to first prove that it's a new and reliable way of transacting, which it hasn't done yet. It's just been too early, just a couple of weeks since that transition to ETH 2.0 has initiated. Yeah, but it is a very exciting, interesting development. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Anya. Next question that's popped up on my screen is from Rakesh Shah. He says that he's completely new to Powerledger. We're very curious about the ability of UGrid and can it be retrofitted onto strata buildings, for example, and then have all the apartments trade their access between each other. Absolutely. You actually described it. That's exactly what UGrid does. If the asset is jointly owned by, let's say, strata community, they can get an equitable allocation using our UGrid platform. And if they're not using their allocated share, they can trade it through our platform and put a price for selling it. And consumers who might need energy at the time can put a price to buy it. And the platform actually creates a bid offer stack mechanism, almost like a marketplace for buying and selling of energy in, behind the meter in microgrid. And we actually have multiple deployments around the world, more so in Australia, actually, where it's taken off really well. And I want to give a plug to Niche Living, which signed up a contract with us, and they're creating multiple apartment buildings, which will be using this solution for their residents.
And there's a question here from Danielle Hoy. How much do REC prices fluctuate in price? And do you think that as renewables increase, it could flood the RECs market over the next 10 years? So I'll just first answer this whole idea of flooding the REC market over the next 10 years. It's a very interesting concept. And I would say that the thinking about RECs is not staying the same. It's really evolving. So something I've touched on earlier about the hourly component of RECs being really important. So we have leaders in the space that are saying annualized RECs are no longer good enough. We need to transition to hourly RECs. And it could be that in the future, RECs for certain times of the day and certain location do flood the market and they do become cheaper. But I would say that it's not a problem. It's actually a feature and a benefit of a openly traded, transparent REC market. Because if there is that much generation at the particular time of the day that is not being utilized, it's actually a price signal to the market that maybe we don't need more generation for whatever that is, 12 o'clock in Australia, right? Maybe we need more generation in that period of time in Finland, or more generation at 5 p.m. or whatever that might be. So the difference and the fluctuation of the REC prices is actually something to be acted on for entrepreneurs and innovative developers who would identify gaps. So this is the time when REC prices are really high. That means there is a need for that in the market, and they're going to build assets to accommodate that.
Thanks, Anya. And there's a question from PK Agarwal from India. And this is about TraceX as well, Anya. So I'll read out the question and you can respond. Is your Trace platform handle REC from end to end? That is starting from renewable energy generation measurement to issue to trading RTO compliance.
Yeah, that's a great question, because for the energy and flexibilities trading, we were always connecting to smart meters and reading information from there. And we could continue to do that for the TraceX product. Means that we can mint on the spot RECs in a tokenized format on a blockchain as the generation data come in. So as a megawatt hour of generation is being reported, we can produce a REC on the platform at that period in time. However, we also see the need to integrate with the registries, which sometimes do and sometimes don't have that really granular information, or they always have it, they might not necessarily be able to share it through an API or whatever that might be. So we're then also integrating with the registries and just reflecting the amount of RECs someone might have in their account without that generation data. And we're addressing both of those things to make sure that we have volume on the platform from the get-go and that we're not excluding anyone.
Thanks, Anya. Next question is from Terry Hill. How does your product deal with transactions within VPPs, for example? What about city block scale microgrids aggregating residential power sources? Great question, Terry. And our VPP can work with residential batteries or commercial industrial batteries. We actually have announced a project in South Australia, which is about residential batteries. So aggregating distributed residential batteries and enabling their participation in energy arbitrage and FCAS services. So yeah, this is a solution for behind the meter residential batteries, very much so. And these could also come from microgrid as well. So for example, there could be a community level microgrid residential battery, which is what we actually have in Fremantle in one of our project locations in East Village. And batteries like these can also participate and be aggregated along with other distributed batteries to act as a single large virtual battery and offer solutions to the grid or even wholesale electricity market for energy arbitrage opportunities. When the market prices are high, for example, they can make money instead of self-consumption model. So yeah, microgrids as well as connected to the main grid, all residential or commercial batteries could participate in VPP services.
So I'm thinking that we have quite a lot of questions that came in, around 40 in total. We can't possibly answer all of them. And we have covered 8 so far. Let me know what you think, but maybe another just couple questions and we will leave the rest for later, or might answer the rest in a written format. But just the next question that really stood out was, what regions are currently best positioned to take advantage of Trace and TraceX? My opinion is that the best markets right now is the US market, just the sheer volume and the size of that market, with that many RECs being traded on both the compliance market and the voluntary markets, just a huge volume of energy. And the Asian market is emerging and is looking really interesting to us. These are really quite different, but the US market has been around for a long while, and a lot of the processes and systems have been quite embedded, which is both good and bad, because there is less of I suppose, an innovation type of mindset. There might be problems that people just got used to the problems. They're like, well, this is just how I do reg buying and selling. This is just what, the systems that I have to maintain. And then in the Asian market, it's really a more kind of fresh look at, well, we want to have some sort of countrywide or a program to facilitate investment in renewables. How do we go about it? It's just sometimes, people entering that space, they might be a rec seller and they just don't even know what a rec is or what kind of classes might be out there, how to sell them, who do you sell them for? So there is more of a hunger, I suppose, for an exchange type functionality where you don't necessarily need to have a counterparty. You can just go into the exchange, list your recs, and then have buyers come in and buy the recs, either for that year or maybe even pre-purchase the recs for the future years. So Asia and the United States are the two key markets that we're targeting at the moment.
Thanks, Anya. And there's a question connected with VPP that I just responded. This is about, does your system integrate with DERMS layer for VPPs? So yeah, VPP, we can integrate with an existing battery management system or with smart inverter directly. So depending on what's applicable, the project that we're doing in South Australia, we're working with Sun and batteries, so directly integrating with their inverter there. But if in some instances there are existing BMS systems or DERMS system on top of an existing battery management system, we can integrate with that as well through API interface.
All right. Well, should we wrap up here?
Yeah. So we'll get access to all the questions and respond. I suppose written responses, or put it on the website, or that's probably, and as long as we get all these questions sent, we would be able to get. Yeah. So we'll put responses on the website then.
Excellent, and thank you so much for your time. It's really lovely to be here, and I'm so glad to see so many people dial in.
Yeah, likewise. It's as I said, always a huge pleasure to be talking to our community directly. It's been an amazing journey for Power Ledger in the last 4.5 years or so. We started off with one proof of concept in Western Australia, now have presence in 10 countries and 20+ projects and growing. And many of these projects are scaling really fast as well. We announced the project in France, for example, that has the project with Equator. They have about 250,000 customers, and they're offering our solution across the board to all of their customers. So scalability is also getting there as well. We're very excited about the future and where Power Ledger is heading. And thank you very much to the community for your ongoing support. So with that, we sign off.